my name is Shanti Mauger. I'm a district judge at the county court in central London. And what that means is that I do a huge variety of cases, from small claims where people have got a dispute with their builder, or sometimes, you know, they've taken their expensive jacket to the dry cleaners and it's been ruined, all sorts of small cases like that, through to some quite interesting cases about properties, whiplash cases, lot of housing cases, where the landlord hasn't repaired the property or where a neighbour is noisy. So it's a very, very broad jurisdiction. And I also do bankruptcy cases. So I didn't read law at university, and I had no lawyers in the family or family friends or anything like that. And I was there in my final year at university, not knowing what on earth to do. So I was thinking about all the different career options, and I thought law, well, that's not stupid. I could see myself doing that. I went and talked to the career service. They said, go and watch in court. I did that. I went off to my local Crown Court and I thought, oh yeah, actually, this is interesting. Then I went to a law fair and I spoke to various barristers and solicitors, and again, I thought, yeah, that seems something I could do. Then I got some work experience and went and watched in court with a barrister, and so it was a gradual process. It wasn't something I always knew I wanted to do at all, and at each stage it just felt right and like something that, yes, I'll keep going with that. And the best bit of it was when I thought, oh, I could actually be a judge. Before I was a judge, I was a barrister in chambers in London, doing mostly property cases, so where people had a dispute about someone building next door, or they had been conned into taking on a mortgage, those kinds of things. Being a barrister meant that I was the person who went to court to make the arguments for my client. Reaching the decisions is obviously the critical part of the judge's role. That's what my job is. My job is to make a decision. How do I do that? Well, obviously I listen very carefully to everything that is said in court, to all the evidence. I read all the documents carefully. Judges have no magic way of telling when people are telling the truth. It's a matter of weighing carefully how credible what people are saying is against the other facts that I can be sure about. And then ultimately I decided on the basis of the evidence and my assessment of which version is more credible than the other. There's no magic way of knowing if I get it right, but I have to give reasons for my decision so that people can see my thought process of how I've reached the decision that I've reached. And part of it, which I think is really important, is trying to create an atmosphere in court that isn't too scary, so that people feel comfortable enough to tell me the whole version as they see it. So it's a nuanced process. There's no magic formula. So I have been a judge now for about 6 years, and I was in practice as a barrister for about 15, 16 years before that. I've seen many changes over that time. I think one of the biggest changes has been in the way that judges are appointed. It used to be very unclear. Now there is a clear, open, transparent application process where you put in a form and you do mock hearings and you answer questions at interview. And I think I noticed it more as a barrister, but it did result in the changes in the kind of judges that you get. I think judges are a lot more approachable and humane than they were when I started out as a junior barrister, where a lot of them were very scary still. There have been other changes in terms of technology and things like that, but I don't think we're quite as far forward in that area as people might think we are. It's a really, really varied job being a judge. So obviously I do the bit where I'm sitting in court, but that's quite a short part of my day. There's a lot of paperwork behind the scenes where files get referred to me and I make a decision about how the hearing is going to take place. Sometimes I make substantive decisions on paper and then let people apply to court if they want to change it. But also there are all sorts of other aspects. So I do training for other judges. I work on publications. I help with doing the online court, which is a new initiative to enable people to run their whole case on an electronic platform. And of course, there's the business of actually talking to my colleagues and trying to see how they're doing and trying to ensure that we have a kind of consistent approach insofar as that's compatible with being independent on the individual case. So there's an awful lot more to it than the actual hearings. The first advice that I would give to someone who is thinking of becoming a judge is definitely pursue it. It's one of the most rewarding and interesting and varied things that you can do in a professional context. Practically speaking, it depends what stage you're at. If you're still not even in the law, I would suggest just going to watch in court. Courts are public and open. And I would suggest that you start in a Crown Court because there all the information that's going on is being put in a format that is acceptable for a jury. So it should be possible for someone who is not legally trained to follow what's going on. If you're already a qualified lawyer and you're thinking about a career as a judge, making that shift, I would definitely try to sign up for some work shadowing, because there's nothing like seeing it from the judge's perspective, seeing the files, seeing the way that advocates perform and litigants in person perform when you are the judge behind the table, as it were, to give you an understanding of what it's actually like. And I haven't seen anyone come for work shadowing who hasn't then thought, oh, this looks like something I could really do. Were there barriers to my entry to the law and to being a judge? To entry into the law, I had no family who'd been lawyers, no one to advise me. So that was a bit scary, but my university career service were really helpful. I hadn't read law at university, so I wasn't automatically being fed down that route. Reaching out to people like the career service really helped me to find my way in. To becoming a judge, I think the biggest barrier was actually my own confidence to apply. And once I had started out as a deputy, and once I had the nerve to do that and started to sit, then my confidence really increased to think that I could do it full time. So I think that's pretty common, that people aren't really sure. The form is pretty daunting, but speak to other people who've done it, and I think the whole process becomes less daunting and entirely achievable. The law is vast. Being in court, doing the kind of work that we do in the court system, is only one small part of it. So I think if you're thinking about doing law, you need to start off by just exposing yourself as much as possible to the legal professions and the legal world. going and watching in a county court or a Crown Court where it's open justice, you can walk in, you don't need to explain who you are, is a really good place to start. Then trying to get any kind of work experience that you can in a solicitor's firm or a barrister's chambers, to see what it's like from that side. And also to think about your own personal interests and what aspect of the law can you see yourself in? And I think it's really important to be honest with yourself at that stage. I started out thinking that I wanted to do criminal law and fight for people's rights, get the guilty convicted, the innocent acquitted, but I hadn't done any law. And when I started my law conversion course, I found pretty quickly that I was enjoying my land law homework a lot more than my criminal law homework. And I had to do a kind of change tack as to which direction I was going to go in. So really have a think about what kind of life you want to have. Is it the interests of young children that you are concerned about? Or is it wanting to be a wheeler dealer, closing deals on multi-million-pound takeovers? You know, they are completely different aspects of the profession, and it all comes under the heading of law. So just as much exposure as you can manage to the different areas to see what it is that you're actually interested in.